Imagine stumbling across a place so ancient that it forces scientists to rethink the story of human civilization. A place built nearly 12,000 years ago, thousands of years before Stonehenge, long before the Great Pyramids of Egypt, before writing, before metal tools, and even before humans were supposed to be living in permanent settlements. Now imagine something even more incredible. The people who built it weren't kings. They weren't part of an empire. They didn't have cities. They hadn't even invented pottery. Yet somehow they carved massive limestone pillars weighing up to 20 tons, covered them with remarkably detailed carvings of wild animals, arranged them into enormous stone circles, and then, for reasons no one fully understands, they buried the entire complex beneath thousands of tons of earth. They didn't abandon it. They buried it on purpose. Why? That single question has fascinated archaeologists for nearly 30 years. Some researchers call Göbekli Tepe the world's first temple. Others believe it was a ceremonial gathering place where different communities came together. And some argue that everything we thought we knew about the birth of civilization may have started here. But after decades of excavation, one mystery still refuses to go away. Who were these people? And how did a society with no known agriculture, no writing, and no advanced technology build one of the most extraordinary monuments in human history? To answer that question, we have to travel to southeastern Türkiye, to a lonely hill that looked completely ordinary for thousands of years. At first glance, there was nothing remarkable about it, just another dusty mound rising above the plains near the modern city of Şanlıurfa. For generations, local farmers walked across the hill without giving it a second thought. They noticed strange stones sticking out of the ground, but no one imagined they were standing on top of one of the greatest archaeological discoveries ever made. In the 1960s, researchers from Istanbul University and the University of Chicago surveyed the site. They documented the hill, but concluded that the scattered stones were probably part of a medieval cemetery. No large-scale excavation followed. Once again, the hill fell silent. For nearly 3 more decades. Then, in 1994, everything changed. A German archaeologist named Klaus Schmidt arrived at the site. Unlike the researchers before him, Schmidt noticed something unusual almost immediately. The limestone fragments scattered across the hill didn't look natural. They had been deliberately shaped. Some had sharply carved edges. Others clearly showed the marks of human craftsmanship. Schmidt had spent years studying nearby Neolithic settlements. The moment he saw those stones, he knew he wasn't looking at an ordinary hill. Years later, he recalled thinking there were only 2 possible outcomes. Either he would walk away, or he would spend the rest of his life excavating this place. He chose to stay. Within months, excavation began. Almost immediately, the team uncovered something extraordinary. Just beneath the surface stood enormous T-shaped limestone pillars. Not one, not 2, dozens of them. Some rose more than 16 feet into the air. Others weighed well over 10 tons. And as the excavation continued, the discoveries became even more astonishing. These pillars weren't scattered randomly across the site. They had been carefully arranged into massive circular enclosures. At the center of each circle stood 2 towering pillars, surrounded by smaller ones placed with remarkable precision. This wasn't a random collection of stones. It was a carefully planned monument. Radiocarbon dating of organic material from the site's earliest layers placed its construction at around 9,600 BCE during the beginning of the pre-pottery Neolithic period. That date completely changed what archaeologists thought they knew, because according to the traditional timeline of history, people living at that time were still hunter-gatherers. Most historians believed that massive monuments only became possible after agriculture allowed people to settle down, produce food surpluses, and organize large labor forces. But Göbekli Tepe turned that entire idea upside down. Instead of farming leading to monumental architecture, a monument appeared before farming was fully established. For decades, archaeologists believed civilization followed a straightforward path. First came agriculture, then permanent villages, then organized religion, then cities. Göbekli Tepe challenged every step of that sequence. Could shared beliefs have brought people together before agriculture? Could religion, or at least large communal rituals, The surprises were only beginning as archaeologists carefully brushed away thousands of years of compacted soil. They uncovered something even more remarkable. Nearly every massive pillar had been carved with extraordinary precision. Foxes, wild boars, lions, gazelles, snakes, scorpions, vultures, cranes. Some animals appear calm and watchful. Others seem poised to strike at any moment. Many of the carvings were executed in high relief, demonstrating a level of craftsmanship that is astonishing for people working with nothing more than simple stone tools. Researchers then identified another extraordinary detail. Many of the towering T-shaped pillars feature carved human arms, hands, belts, and loincloths. These were not merely blocks of stone. Most archaeologists interpret them as highly stylized human figures, silent guardians standing over a world that disappeared thousands of years ago. But one question persisted. If these people possessed the skill, organization, and determination to create something so extraordinary, why did they build it? And perhaps even more puzzling, why did they eventually bury the entire complex themselves? Those answers remain hidden beneath the soil, and the deeper archaeologists excavated, the more complex the story became. One of the most significant mysteries was not what they discovered, it was what they did not. At nearly every ancient settlement from this period, archaeologists expect to find the ordinary traces of daily life: cooking hearths, homes, storage pits, refuse deposits. The everyday remains left behind by communities that lived in one place for generations. Göbekli Tepe, however, presents a very different picture. The monumental stone circles are present, the carved pillars are present, thousands of stone tools are present, yet clear evidence of permanent dwellings from the site's earliest phase is surprisingly limited. This has led archaeologists to an important question. What if the people who built this site did not actually live here? What if they traveled from different regions to gather for a shared purpose? Klaus Schmidt proposed that Göbekli Tepe may have functioned as a ceremonial center where groups of hunter-gatherers assembled at specific times of the year. Not all researchers fully agree with this interpretation. Some argue that nearby settlements likely supported the site, and ongoing excavations continue to refine our understanding. However, there is broad consensus on one point. The construction of Göbekli Tepe required an extraordinary level of planning and coordination. The limestone used to carve the pillars was sourced directly from the hill itself. Archaeologists have identified ancient quarries only a few hundred yards away. Some unfinished pillars remain partially attached to the bedrock today, as if work was abruptly halted and never resumed. Using stone hammers made from harder rock, the builders extracted enormous blocks of limestone. Then came the challenge that continues to puzzle engineers today: transporting them. Some of these pillars weigh between 10 and 20 tons. No wheels, no metal tools, no horses, no oxen, only human effort. The exact methods used to move these massive stones remain uncertain. Most researchers suggest that large teams likely pulled them on wooden sledges using plant fiber ropes across carefully prepared routes. Experimental archaeology has demonstrated that extremely heavy stones can be moved using simple technology when sufficient manpower is available. Even so, organizing hundreds of workers would have required a level of coordination once thought impossible for hunter-gatherer societies. And that may be Göbekli Tepe's most important lesson. Perhaps the most remarkable achievement was not the stone itself, it was the people. For generations, historians portrayed early hunter-gatherers as small, isolated groups focused solely on survival. Göbekli Tepe presents a far more complex reality. It suggests that thousands of years before the first cities, large communities were already capable of organizing, cooperating, and working toward shared objectives. Researchers also observed something particularly intriguing. The carvings were not random decoration. Many depict dangerous animals: snakes, scorpions, wild boars, powerful predators. Some scholars believe these creatures held symbolic or spiritual significance. Others suggest they simply reflected the surrounding wildlife familiar to the builders. There is still no consensus. One of the most debated discoveries is known as the Vulture Stone, officially designated Pillar 43 in Enclosure D. Its surface depicts vultures, a large bird, a headless human figure, and a series of enigmatic symbols. Since its discovery, archaeologists have debated its meaning.